In this first tutorial, we're going to be building a simple flange in SolidWorks. And what our objectives are is we want to become familiar with how the prop modeling environment works and talk a little bit about the different things that are going on as we build it. We're going to be using the extruded boss slash base feature, an extruded cut circular pattern, a fillet, and a chamfer. We're going to learn how to make new planes, and we're going to learn a little bit about design intent when we're planning a model. So the model that we are going to make is we're going to make this little flange right here. You can see it's a 5.5-inch diameter base flange. It sticks out 2.25 inches. The boss itself is a diameter of 2.75 inches. There's an 1.5-inch diameter hole right down the middle of it. We can tell it's in the middle because we can look at the section view, and a section view is when they cut away part of the model. So you see this AA line here. This is what's called a section line. And it's basically you're dropping a buzzsaw right through that part of the model, and you're looking at what it looks like on the inside. And we have these 4 through holes here of a 1/2 inch each. And then we can look at this little section here, which is a blow up detail, this detail B, and there's a little chamfer that we've got to put together. So in order to do that, we're going to move over into SolidWorks. Now, there are a lot of little settings and everything in SolidWorks. You can look in the book to see. You can play around with that. We're just going to get right going. And so what we want to do is go right here. We're going to make a new part. Don't worry about this. I still haven't set up the proper pathways on my computer. I don't really need it. And I'm just going to wait for it to start up. Okay, so it's going to give you the option of 3 different things, and this will always appear when we go into SolidWorks. We have parts, which are individual components. That's what we're going to start with. You have assemblies. Assembly is a bunch of different parts that you put together. So if you think about something like a bicycle, a lawnmower, a guitar, it's made up of a lot of different pieces that are put together in a certain way. That's what an assembly is. And the last thing we have is a drawing. A drawing is a 2D representation of the part that we're going to look at. That thing that I showed you before, which this is what we're building, that would be a drawing. It had 3 different views on it. We'll talk about that all later when we do drawings. But right now what we're going to do is we're going to start out with just a part. We're going to hit OK, and then what's going to happen is it's going to open up the model space for us, and it's going to have all these tabs and everything on it. Now we have basically like every add-in that you can possibly have for SolidWorks. So some of the stuff we're not going to be using. This stuff, CAM, is for computer-aided machining. That is all of our stuff. You design this and you throw it to a CNC machine. What we want to do, what we're going to focus on is features, sketches. We'll talk a little bit about evaluate as we go on in the course. Features are the 3D parts themselves. All this stuff starts at a sketch, which is a 2D representation. So if I wanted to make a cylinder, I would draw a circle. That would be my 2D sketch. And then I would turn it into a feature, which I would give it some material. Because everything is going to be based off of a 3-dimensional part. We call that a base feature. When it's the first one, it's a boss feature if it's already past the first one. And you can see right here, we've got the extruded base, the revolved base. It's just different ways to make things. We're going to deal with extruded, which is we just take a 2D cross section and we give it some depth. Over here, what we have down here, this is our feature manager. It's the design tree. All the little steps that we're going to do will show up over here. It's kind of like a roadmap of what the part is. Later on, we can add materials, so we can calculate out how much it weighs, where the center of gravity is, all that kind of stuff. So the important thing to note is with all these parts, you're going to have 3 things that are going to be here: a front, a top, and a right plane, and then the origin. Now, these are going to be important because this is going to come to the drawings, as we'll talk about. Typically, drawings will have a front view, a top view, and a right-hand side view. At least that's how we do things in the States. And so these give us a starting point to where and how to put together our model. The origin is where all 3 of these planes interact. Now, by default, these are hidden. If I right-click on them, the little eyeball says Show. There I can see my 3 planes. you can hide and show features all the time. So the origin is where all three of these come together. And that's our global 0, 0, 0. Why is this important? A couple reasons. When you go to put this into an assembly, you need to know how to measure it from where it's going to be and where the part is going to go in the assembly. So you always want to have everything tagged back to the origin, back to 0, 0, 0. Now, one of the things that I'll talk about as we're sketching is we want to get into this idea of what's called fully defined geometry. For 3D modeling, it's really important that as we change things, everything that we want to change is going to change, which means that we have to make sure that our geometry is always fully tagged and has a measurement from somewhere. And then as we do this, you'll see SolidWorks has a good way of doing that because it's color-coded. If it's blue, it means it's not fully constrained. If it's red, it means it's over-constrained, which means you put too many constraints on it. If it's black, it means that it is fully constrained. And that's what you want to do. Every sketch that you make, you want to be black. You never want to leave anything blue. You need to put that together. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start. Now, I'm going to re-hide these planes just to make it a little bit easier for us to see what we're doing. And so what I want to do is I need to start sketching. And I want to sketch that circular feature. I'm going to start out and do the boss. So what I want to do is I've got all my tools here, and I'm going to go to the circle. Under the circle, there's a couple different ways to make it. We're going to go with the circle, which is the center, and then a point. Now you can see that it automatically shows the planes. It's like, okay, which plane do you want to sketch on? Since we have no geometry here yet, we have to sketch on one of these three, what are called reference planes. So I'm going to sketch on the front plane, and I'm just going to highlight it here, or I could go over into the feature tree and go front plane. Either way gets me to where I'm going. And so now you notice I've got a little pencil, and so I can draw in my circle. Now I'll just stick it over here, and I will draw my circle. It shows me the circle. Great. We'll go back and play with all that stuff in a second. So now I'm looking at my sketch, and it's given me the gray area that shows me it's a closed sketch. Now, a couple things to note. One, the circle's blue. What does the circle blue mean? It means it's not fully defined. And note that the sketch over here has a little negative sign in front of it, and that's telling me it's not fully defined. Okay, what do I mean by not fully defined then? Well, if I go grab the middle of the circle, I can move it around. There's nothing stopping me from moving it because there's no constraint on there. I could also grab this line here, and I can change the diameter of the circle because there's nothing that is constraining that size of that circle. Now, I can put in a fixed relationship which just goes, okay, put the center of this and just never move it. You really don't want to use fixed constraints. Very special case kind of things. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to tag the center of this to the origin. So if I click there, if I hold the control button and I click there, so now I've clicked point 2, which is the center of the circle, and I've picked the origin. So the origin that's the middle, that's the center of all of our things. And then it tells me, okay, I can add any of these relations. So if I do it horizontal, what is it going to do? It'll make sure those 2 points are horizontal. Vertical will make sure the 2 points are vertical. I want to do what's called coincident. What coincident means, it means the points are in the same spot. So it's going to tag one point to the other one. So if I click that, notice it moves the center of my circle right to